All right, what's happening? How we're still looking? Are we still looking? If you're watching this on the replay, and this episode makes up being the actual one, we've had some technical issues this morning, so trying to figure that out. How is the? Does it look choppy still? Look choppy. We've been having transmission issues. So welcome back to Coffee Q&A 355. I'm Jay, your host. We're here most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern, talking about coffee. So hopefully this one works. Still choppy, but we can hear you. What in the world is going on with this thing? So ridiculous, so ridiculous. If there's any improvement or anything like that, and I will continue to try to figure that out. It's just one of those things where every few months or every few weeks we have these issues that just seem to be insurmountable technically. Yeah, look at that. That looks terrible. Even on my end, it looks terrible. Let's see what we can figure out. So we got some coffee. Every once in a while, I have to go and buy coffee, or every once in a while, I'm augmenting our coffee supply with coffee from importers. So I'm looking at different importers to see what they have in their catalogs, and then within the professional ranks, you can order from your suppliers samples so that you can test them out. Not all coffees are available as samples. There are some coffees that are on their high end of the scale. They don't offer those for samples because probably people go crazy with it. But in this case, I got some coffees here. They are from a company. They are from a coffee company importer called Genuine Origin, who is a great company. They're actually a really great company that's really good for like small quantities of coffee. And I ordered a bunch of stuff from them. The hearing is good, says Peter. All right, well, we'll try with that, and then they say in YouTube land that, if the picture quality is a little bit off, but the audio is solid, then people will be all right with it. Okay, so we've got a couple of samples here. What did we choose? Even though I ordered this on like Sunday, I totally have forgotten what I've ordered. So this is a Colombian coffee. You can see it. Let me zoom in again. Whoops, not too far that way. Wow, this is really terrible. So I'm going to go, okay, what I need to do is I need to move slowly so that the image will be all right. So this is from Colombia. The place is called the Finca Milan. And what they're doing, see, this is a whole nother type of fermentation, a culturing nitro fermentation catiope. I don't know what catiope could be the varietal of Arabica, but as you can see, green coffee, Colombia, Arabica coffee. Now you can see here the net weight is 300 grams. So within for professional coffee, you have coffees typically when you get a sample 300 to 350 grams. That is enough coffee for you to make sample roasts, maybe one or two, depending on how you do it, and also to have enough quantity of coffee to do a critical cupping. And when we talk about critical cuppings, we're talking about utilizing samples of coffee like we've showed here before, where you're putting your roasted coffee into similar glasses of similar size, and you're doing a cupping with them. Now, for a true critical cupping, you're going to use 5 of these type of glasses or 5 samples of the coffees in order to get an evaluation for it. And why we're using 5 is because 5 gives enough variation so that in case there are any kind of defects that you may notice in the coffee, you can see, is it just an anomaly? Like if it happens only in 1 out of the 5, then perhaps it's just an anomaly. But if it happens in multiples over 5, the increasing frequency of that defect within those 5 samples indicates, something else. Like perhaps it is a definite characteristic of the coffee in that there are a lot of defects beyond what you may determine as acceptable for whatever contract price that you end up with, right? Anton says, I recently bought a bag from my go-to roaster, and only on trying it, I realized it's the exact same coffee as the one I bought as green to try to roast it myself. Literally this, oh, wow, that's awesome. Now you have the opportunity to roast your own and compare it to these guys that you buy from. So that's a cool thing. So this is a culturing for nitro fermentation. Let me see here. Let me look up a little bit more information online to see what is. I mean, I could go to this, but then it's probably all choppy, and then I think that's probably seeing me choppy. If it is like that, I can see that is probably more irritating than just seeing a static bag of coffee. So we're going to go with that. So let's look here a little bit. I'm going to look online to see what they have. There it is. So this is a coffee that they gave a cup scoring of 86. So fairly high, that's a great score, really. $86 or 86 points is a great score. This is actually from the April to May harvest of 2023. Culturing nitro fermentation. It's a wash coffee, but culturing nitro fermentation. Let's see what they say about that. The Finca Milan nitrogen fermentation process coffee. Colombia loves to excite us with new and innovative processing methods like this unique nitro wash coffee. At Finca La Riviera, where the coffee processing for Finca Milan takes place, a lot of times these companies or these growers may not have facilities of their own. So I'm going to take by this what they're wording here says that the Finca Milan that's actually growing the coffee perhaps doesn't have enough space on their land for processing, so they take it to the Finca La Riviera, which probably, and because it only lists one producer Julio Cesar Madrid Tisnes, it could very well be the fact that he owns both farms and only has processing at the one location. So he brings the cherries from one location to the other in order to do the processing. This is not uncommon. A lot of producers will do that. Like a lot of times, producers that we know will take their coffees instead, and because they don't have processing on their land, they'll take them to what would be called a beneficio, which is a wet processing facility that will do coffees for whoever wants to bring them, right? And depending on who they are and what they do and how they do it, they can be very, very careful in the way they process the coffees. So the producer designed and perfected the different fermentation protocols for a variety of methods, including washed, honey, natural, cold press, culturing, and nitrogen fermentations. In the nitrogen fermentation process, ripe coffee cherries are subjected to embryonic stress so that the temperature of the cherries rises and falls to 12 degrees, keeping them in the best condition for further processing. Brewster says, I just found a bag of green coffee that I've had for about 1.5 years. Is it still good to roast? Yeah, man, go roast it. Even Peter has coffee that's older. So yeah, roast it away. And here's the worst thing. It's like the worst thing that can happen is that you find you don't like it, and then you just give it to your friends. There's always that. You can always give it to your friends, and all of us have friends who are going to be less discerning than we are about their coffee, and they're going to love it because you'll be giving them nice, freshly roasted coffee that you did for them. Fresh roasted? Gosh, what greater sign of friendship could there possibly be? So continue on with the Finca Milan story. After pulping, the beans are placed in a bioreactor and inoculated with starter cultures, yeast and bacteria, as well as fruit must. The bioreactor is sealed and injected with nitrogen to facilitate the metabolic processes of the microorganisms. During this time, temperature, acidity, and Brix degrees are closely monitored against past data in order to time the end of the fermentation stage and initiate oxidation. After leaving the bioreactor, the coffee beans are dried in solar dryers to 40% moisture, then transferred to mechanical dryers until reaching 10% to 12% moisture. The resting period in the warehouse is around 45 days before the coffee is hulled and prepared for export. So a little bit more about the producer. Julio Cesar Madrid is a third-generation coffee grower, and Finca Milan, a 250-hectare estate, has been in his family for over 40 years. Now, this is something that when we talk about it, 250 hectares, 40 years his family's been in it. He's third generation. These are some distinct characteristics that I'm going to mention in a few moments. But those are some pertinent facts that I think that are important to keep in mind. Together with two other farms, Finca Riviera and Finca Buenos Aires, his family's estates have won multiple awards and championships. Most recently, the Italian barista Daniele Ricci earned second place in the World Barista Championships in Athens, Greece. Located in the central foothills of the Andes Mountains within the Risaralda department, or the kind of like their province or state, what you call it, Finca Milan's young soil is enriched with nutrients from the relatively recent eruptions of nearby volcanoes. The wide thermal range of the microclimate reaches up to 30 degrees Celsius in the daytime and can drop to 15 Celsius in the evening, allowing coffee cherries to develop complex and unique flavors. Of Finca Milan's 250 hectares, 220 grow coffee with a focus on Caturra, Castillo, Pink Bourbon, and Catiope variety. So Catiope is the coffee variety. And here's a little bit more about it. It says, the Catiope coffee cultivar is a cross between Colombian Caturra and an Ethiopian landrace, hence the name Caturra and Etiope. Oh, okay, Catiope, interesting. I have not personally used any Catiope. Developed in an experimental station operated by Senicafe in Cauca, the cultivar is valued for its low-growing, high-bearing trees and high cup quality. So the low-growing, I wonder what, maybe we'll see. We'll see in a moment. Okay, that's good. Let's see what kind of, it says low-growing, so I wonder, 1,650 meters is where the coffee is grown. So I would not say that, I mean, I guess that's low. Well, I don't even know I would say that's low growing. Like anything that is like above 1,000 meters is kind of high. Like if you're talking low growing, I would think Catiope would then be something you would cultivate at 800 to 900 to 1,000 meters. But the flavors they're talking about are strawberry jam, cane sugar, citrus with a syrupy nest to it, the medium body, medium acidity. Anton says embryonic stress. Yes, I think I also had that. Oh, nice. Did you like it? Kent says interesting variety. Apparently, it's a cross between Caturra and Ethiopian landrace. Never heard of it. Yeah, I've never heard of it before either. So this is totally new for me. Power Plant says they are good at. They are very good at. There's a lot of like flowery descriptives here, especially the whole thing about the relatively recent volcanic stoics. I mean, I lived in. I've been to eruptions in Hawaii like 40 years ago. And it's still not sold today. Like, I don't know what relative recent is, probably like a millennia. The power plant says making people believe heritage and history is a key to upselling the beans. And then Peter says they start to lose that green-blue color and smell changes. Oh, after they get older, yes. Or because it's, oh yeah, coffee old. I guess coffee older. Power plant says funny, all those subvarietals are still around. Yeah, I mean, they're all Arabica. But here's the thing for me that so this coffee itself scored 86, which in the scale of things is very good. The selling price is $9.75 per pound, which is currently over twice the sea market rate. Now, in and of itself, the price is what the price is. But here's the thing. So it's like, this is the part of me that always kind of balks at this kind of thing, because, and this is not a knock on the family that this coffee comes from, right? This has nothing, it really has nothing to do with them, but more with the way that we as coffee buyers and the coffee industry interact with things. Like this guy, what's his name again? Julio Cesar Madrid. As it says, he's third generation producer. His family's had this farm for 40 years. They have 250 hectares. You do not have that kind of land and those kind of You don't have that kind of possession unless you have some kind of resources, right? Like you've got resources. You're without a doubt, Julio is well educated, came from a very good family. Everything was probably very good for him, right? So, and he's continued the family business, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but the ability for someone like the Madrids on these lands to create this type of coffee that can get high scores consistently and develop new processes and really be forward, progressive thinking is not possible, is only possible because he has resources available to him that allow this. And this is the thing. So a lot of coffee buyers will go and they want to have that story of like, oh, we met this farmer and we work with them and they had this beautiful coffee. But that farmer that they want to have that story with does not have the kind of background that someone like Julio Cesar has as far as family, money, education, resources. The advantage for this man is tremendous versus a lot of the small plot holders. And, and I think that we need to, as coffee buyers, we need to recognize that and understand that. Because I think that I just think of the times when we talk to farmers and I talk to other buyers and they're like, if they only had this coffee, well, that's not what they have because they probably don't have they don't have the wherewithal to create that coffee. They don't have all the resources necessary. And like I mentioned to you before about how this time when we were in Mexico and these guys wanted them to produce like 85-point coffee. But it would take the guy maybe 2 months to do it, like as it says here, right? 45 days just for the aging, the maturation in the warehouse alone, they have 45 days. A lot of these cats don't have 45 days. They gotta feed their kids. So it's like, while this is something, coffees that can be celebrated, I'm always kind of torn. It's like, okay, these guys can produce, and don't get me wrong, I buy coffee from people very similar to this. A lot of the families that I work with, who are my friends in the business, are very much like this, multi-generational coffee producers with great resources. Why? Mainly because, my focus is on quality, right? And I want to have nice quality coffee for my guests. And one of the ways to do that is by working with people that can produce quality year in, year out. And that's where the difference is. Like, I remember this one woman who was in Colombia one year that I was there. The year previous to this auction, she had won the auction. And it had, I want to say it changed her life that year. Like, she got tremendous windfall from this coffee because the auction buyers went crazy for it. But she wasn't Julio Cesar. She wasn't one of those. She was one of those typical small plot, maybe half a hectare of coffee, growing it by herself on her own little land. And she has to travel by bus all the way to the auction with big hopes of getting the same thing the next year. Nobody bought her coffee that auction because it wasn't great. And all the coffees at the auction were really great, but it wasn't that great. So here's this woman that had tasted tremendous success the year before, outright failure. Her coffee would now go back into the general pool of commercial coffees to be, locked in by the Federación to be sold to whoever buyer would come take them. These people that had worked with her, who had bought her coffee the year before, didn't think to work with her, didn't think to what can we do to get more coffee from this woman? They loved the idea that she was this campesino type of farmer that had produced this, 92, whatever, 87 coffee. But after that, done. There was no value to her after that point, which I was like, this is to me, even though we're all in the specialty world, right? All of this beautiful coffee that we all talk about here. It's no different. It's no different. Everyone's still treated as trash. Oh yeah, power plant. Sorry, the video is choppy. I don't know what's wrong today. I think the way that the Comcast transmission is not going well. Here in the United States, we pay exorbitant amounts of money. What is it, $150 a month for 5 megabits per second upload speed, where my phone will do 15 megabits per second, which for some reason it doesn't want to work today as well. But in other parts of the world, they're paying half or less than half of what we pay, $40 a month or something, for like, I don't know, 150 megabytes upload. How can we make America great again when our internet is so terrible? Yeah, the coffee gods are angry. Sorry, my apologies. That's why I've been going to a lot more static shots with this, so that it doesn't seem like. Evidently, the audio is fine. So if I do this, it seems like it's all good until I turn it over, and you're like, "Why is it all choppy?" The power plant says, generally speaking, my preference is Africa, Asia, Asian, Central, and South America. Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, Paige says it's definitely my internet. It's definitely on my end. And the crazy thing, it's to the point of the computer, like, because everything runs from the cameras, the microphones into the switcher, and then that goes into the computer, and then that computer sends it out through YouTube Studio. So it's from the computer's point, which goes wirelessly to the router, and then onwards. So somewhere in there is where there is some kind of issue. Power plant says in Central South America, women growers are usually really up a creek because the culture is so. Yeah, agreed. Like some of the roasters that I work with, the growers that I work with, specifically Katia Duque down in Honduras, as well as Annie Ruth Pimentel in El Salvador. There are two women who have produced beautiful coffees. They produce beautiful coffees, but yeah, if you talk to them, they had a lot of trouble. They had a lot of difficulty forging their way in the male-dominated world. It's very difficult for women. Very, very difficult. Paige says that Little Waves Roaster in Durham tends to focus on women growers in front, and that's a great thing. That's a beautiful thing. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Peter says, I got free internet sitting outside some shop using their free one. Oh, nice. Dude, isn't it like 1:30 in where you are? Isn't it dangerous to be outside sucking on the free Wi-Fi? All right, let's have a look at the next coffee. This next coffee is something. Oh, here's some more fanciness. Like, I don't normally go for fancy, but I thought, oh, let's see. Oh, wrong way. I thought, let's see. This is from Nicaragua, the La Bastilla Wash Geisha. The geisha, a geisha of all things. Can you imagine? Geisha. What am I doing with a geisha? I'm not a big fan of geisha. But I thought we'd try. This one's more expensive. This is $10.65 a pound. So it's a little bit more pricey. Now this one they say, so, okay, here's the thing. The cup score they gave for this is cup scored from April 2024, so almost a year ago. Lower than the Finca Milan. Finca Milan, 86 points. This one, 85.5 points. A medium-bodied, medium acidity wash coffee that's supposed to have cherry, stone fruit, plum, caramel, tea rose, and melon flavors. So let's see, the La Bastilla Geisha wash process. Our new wash, here's something. Here's some more flowery words for you, power plant. Our new wash process geisha variety unroasted coffee micro lot was sourced from Finca La Bastilla, an idyllic farm set above the high peaks of Nicaragua's Jinotega department. Why do they say Jinotega department? It's Departamento de Jinotega. Why not just say Jinotega state? Jinotega, because anyway, I'm getting lost. Ripe red coffee cherries were picked from La Bastilla's Geisha micro farm, should I say. The cherries were floated, depulped, and then placed in fermentation tanks to remove the mucilage. The resulting clean cup profile offers a clear view of the geisha variety with floral, honeysuckle, and fresh fruit notes. Oh, In the washed or wet process, coffee cherries are floated and sorted to ensure consistent ripeness and to remove any defective cherries. The seeds are then removed from their skins using depulping machines and typically moved to fermentation tanks to remove the mucilage. Afterwards, the coffee is dried until it reaches the optimal moisture level. Wash processing has become wildly popular. Blah 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 blah. Okay, that's nothing. That's nothing interesting. La Bastilla. This is about the coffee farm. La Bastilla Coffee Estates, located in the northeast region of Jinotega, Nicaragua, is renowned for its coffee. On its two farms, Finca La Bastilla and Finca Santa Luz, the estate employs around 50 permanent and up to 600 temporary employees during the harvest season. Surrounded by the natural reserve Cerro de Tanli El Diablo, just a few kilometers from Lago de Apanas, Finca La Bastilla is a tropical paradise for the fauna and flora founded on deep, favorable volcanic soils. Wow, so much lovely language. Since 2003, the farm has been certified by the Rainforest Alliance and is striving for continued excellence. Micro farms have been created throughout the estate so that each coffee can express its full potential in accordance with the different microclimates. Each farm is further divided into lots. Lots are differentiated at the microfarm level, but also by the variety of the coffee and the altitude. Additionally, La Bastilla owns a micro mill. Every coffee is wet milled and dried milled with care. Between coffee varieties and its ability to control processing, La Bastilla is capable of producing more than 150 micro-lot coffees, including bespoke offerings upon request. Oh, nice. Okay, let's keep going. Geisha is a prized cultivar which is renowned for its flavor and often for its eye-popping price. Originally named Geisha for the town of Geisha in Ethiopia, the rare coffee is also known as Geisha with an I. The highly sought-after Geisha cup profile is often associated with bright citrus, honeysuckle sweetness, and a delicate tea-like and floral notes. However, the cultivation and harvesting of Geisha coffees involves special care and attention. Geisha coffee trees tend to have low yields and can be susceptible to leaf rust. The unique flavor profile in combination with low-yielding temperamental trees make Geisha a specialty coffee treasure. The coffee bean quality, SHG. Strictly high-grown coffee is grown at altitude of 1,200 meters above sea level or higher, and they tend to mature more slowly, blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of talking. There's just a lot of talking. Peter says, it's safe today. I don't feel like money. I guess you have enough money today. Okay, that's fine. Paige says, I don't get the hype of Geisha. It's all right, but generally too tea-like for me. And that's what one of my really good friends was like years ago when we talked about Geisha. He called me up. He's like, I've had the Geisha. I was like, oh, what'd you think of it? He's like, if I want tea, I'll drink tea. I was like, I get it. Power plant says, red bread equals rust. Nice. Anton, I've had geishas that weren't tea-like at all, like the one from Tim Wendelbo. And the most amazing geisha, Ruslandia geisha, was natural fermented and super dense. And I think it's more interesting when people, historically, geisha has been wash processed, mainly because it came from Panama. I think it gets to be more interesting when you do different styles of processing. Like this one should be fairly straightforward as far as geisha. I guess we'll try to find out. Paige says, I just don't crazy about how much more expensive they are, and most I see tasting notes I don't generally jump for, though I've seen described as Fruit Loops, but so yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing. I don't think there's anything wrong if you look at geisha and you look at the notes and you're like, yeah, I don't find that to be terribly exciting. And because people think you should find it exciting because it's so expensive. But really, who cares how expensive it is if you don't like it? Like, for example, who cares how expensive filet mignon is if you don't like filet mignon? It doesn't make a difference. As long as you enjoy the coffee, that's always to me like the most important aspect of it. The power plant says it really comes down to the roaster to get the most out of the beans. That's true. Geisha or not, the roaster is responsible for the cuppa. Absolutely. And it also, I think it's important for the roaster to be the one to select the coffee. It's really a whole process. But I totally agree with you. Everything that the roaster does is important as far as determining the quality of the coffee. Anton says the Ruslandia one was normal priced. It came with my subscription. Oh, nice. Peter says, I thought geisha was a Japanese girl. Well, it could be a girl. We're not being so binary anymore, Peter. You know, this is, well, then again, in America, we're going back to being more binary, right? Anton says, I'm afraid it might have been one of a kind. Yeah. Geisha is my alter. Excellent. Okay, so let's see. I've got a couple more to go through here that I thought that I would share with you. This one is, here's one. This is also, we had the geisha at $10.65. The next one is more expensive at $10.85 a pound. Now these are the prices that if I bought them, I would pay. I would have to at least treble that price, or maybe quadruple the price, because now everything's kind of crazy. So there's always part of me that's like, oh, do you want to bring coffee this kind of expensive? So this is also from La Bastille, yeah. Also from the same farm. This is, and also geisha. This is now their honey process. So we're going to skip over a lot of that other stuff and look at the honey process. So the honey process the honey and honey process coffee is unrelated to honey from bees. The term honey refers to the mucilage that surrounds the coffee at the parchment skin. So if you're not too familiar, the beans, when they're in the husk, are actually surrounded by this grape pulp material, and that's what we call the mucilage. The profile of honey coffees is strongly dependent upon the amount of the coffee mucilage that is left on the coffee during fermentation. In general, the more mucilage or honey left on the bean during fermentation, the sweeter the coffee will be. It'll be sweeter, but also basically the mucilage drying on the coffee kind of gives it that kind of natural-esque process method. The cup profile of honey processed coffees sits strongly in the middle of washed and natural processed coffees. Honey processing generally yields a fruity cup. However, honeys don't usually have the fruit bomb effect or volatility of some naturals. Yeah, because you're only talking about now just that pulpy matter. In contrast to washed coffees, honeys often result in rounder acidity and a more complex mouthfeel. And it's also far less water intensive than processing, than washed, right? So in this coffee, they say this coffee gives dark chocolate, blackberry, caramel, and rose hips kinds of notes, which should be kind of interesting. I think that might be kind of interesting. Now, when we talk about honeys, they didn't specify here, they just say honey. Once upon a time, before the honeys became popular, there was a process called pulp natural, which is basically the same thing. You take these ripe fruits, you break them open, and then you separate the hulls from the mucilage covered beans. And then you just dried it just like that. You dry it just like that, and that's what we call pulp natural. Over the last 20 years, this honey process has developed where you take the pulp natural bean and you run it through you can either run it through a machine that actually kind of scrapes off some of that mucilage, or you can put it into a fermentation tank and partially ferment some of the mucilage off. Now, depending on the amount of mucilage that you're removing from your coffee, that will determine the level of the honey process. And you probably heard about different honey processes. Basically, they range from black or red honey, which is basically the equivalent to pulp natural. And then as they remove more and more of the mucilage, it kind of goes down. So black and red to orange to yellow to white. And then if you remove it all, then you're essentially doing a wash type of process, right? Because you're not using any of that mucilage to color the flavor of the coffee. The YOLO. Anton says, I don't think the coffee just absorbs all the mycotoxins. He says, I'm always confused by the name geisha. It's from the geisha girl. No, it's actually, there's actually a town in Ethiopia called Gesha, or I think that's how they pronounce it. So, but it's like geisha, but without the I. right? So just Gesha, Gesha. And, when it first came out, people didn't really realize that there's a town in Ethiopia called Gesha. So they started calling it geisha. And, we in America love to butcher words. So Gesha, geisha, whatever. We just geisha is fine. And so that's kind of how it developed over the last 20-some years. Anton says, and who knows if the traces even survive the roasting process, let alone the brewing. Power Plant says they do, but it's fine. Humans have lived with mold. We eat like fermented foods all the time. Peter says, I had processed some coffee bean, lots of work for a handful of beans. Hardest thing was taking, that's they have these machines that you just run them through and it removes, not that you do that for a small amount, but in case you want to do it. All right, let's go to something, our last, I only got 4 coffees this week. Oh, this was one that I thought was kind of interesting, like really kind of odd. Someone the other day mentioned the Monsoon Malabar. Was that you, Paige? I think that was you. So anyway, someone mentioned the Monsoon Malabar, and I'm trying to see which one this is. Okay, this one, I thought this was kind of interesting. I saw this on the catalog and I was like, oh, let's go check it. Now you're going to notice on this particular one it has a designation PB. PB means pea berry. And the pea berry, so if you're already familiar that the coffee that we eat are the beans are the seeds of the fruit. And there's normally 2 in one fruit. Now the pea berry is when the whatever causes the separation of the cells to create the 2 seeds doesn't happen, and you have this little tiny 1 seed and it's in the cherry. And this is a really, really small part of production every year. But some people will take those pea berries and they'll sort them out and sell them as something distinctly different. Not all countries do this, not all farms do this, but some places do. And I saw this on the catalog and I was like, let's get a taste of that because it's interesting. This particular coffee is from India. Yeah, South Asia, India. Yeah. And this particular coffee is from a place called the Alanasans. It's from Alanasans. It's the Arabica plantation, the pea berry from 2024. Now, this one is half the price of the other coffees. This is $5.65. So now we're back in the range of coffees that are typical for modern market times. So this is produced in the state of Karnataka, which is the heart of India's coffee production. Now, about 90% of the coffee's volume grows in the southern states of Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, where most Arabica farms are between 700 to 1,200 meters above sea level. So these are lower altitude coffees, right? So when we talked about the first coffee where they're saying, oh, it's low, the what's it called? The Catiope is a low elevation coffee. This is what I think about. When I think of a low elevation, I think 700 to 1,200 meters, right? That's low elevation. Coffee from Karnataka is known for well-rounded and balanced flavors, like this lot sourced in partnership with Alanasans that features sweet notes of milk chocolate, red apple, and cane sugar. Now, what is the pea berry? The pea berry, like I said, is a result of genetic mutation where only 1 seed develops inside the coffee cherry instead of 2. Pea berries are usually smaller, denser, and rounder than regular coffee beans. Around 1 in 9 coffee cherries results in a pea berry, so about 10%, I guess. So it takes a lot of patience to sort them out. And then a little about the specialty coffee in Arabica. In India. Coffee in India grows in the side canopy of evergreen leguminous trees on smallholder farms that are mostly less than 10 hectares in size. Producers intercrop coffees with spices, pepper, cardamom, vanilla, orange, and banana trees. Some of the most common green coffee varietals found in India are S795, which is a hybrid of Kent, and S228. Kent, we're talking about you. There's actually a varietal about you. I didn't know that. S228, itself a hybrid of Coffea Arabica and Coffea Liberica. Oh, interesting. 228 is Arabica and Liberica. And Cauvery, Cauvery, a local subvariety of Catimor. interesting. India is well known for its monsoon Malabar coffee. The unique processing method seeks to replicate the conditions that existed when coffee was shipped in vessels during colonial times. The coffee was usually at sea for months at a time and was exposed to terrific amounts of water, heat, and humidity. The processing method mimics that humidity, swelling, and aging, and is responsible for the unique monsoon Malabar profile. I don't think that, is this monsoon Malabar? It doesn't say that I don't think it is. I don't know why they put that in there. Maybe that's just extra. It's just extra now. Like most coffee-producing nations, India has its own unique naming and grading conventions for its coffees. Washed Arabica beans are labeled plantation. This does not mean it came from a coffee estate. Washed Robusta beans are called parchment, not to be confused with the coffee and parchment that we're used to in other parts of the world. Naturals, whether they are Arabica or Robusta, are called cherry. These coffees are dried green coffee, not coffee cherries. Interesting. The name plantation PB refers to washed Arabica pea berry grown in India. Oh, fascinating. All right, and so that's the pea berry. So kind of an interesting looking coffee. Power Plant says JP does produce coffee, but not enough for export. Ah, okay. I found beans with 3 seeds and 4 seed. Oh, interesting. 4 and 3. Power Plant says Chinese elephant beans are crazy. Oh, yeah, those are huge. A friend of mine has some of those because he's based down there, so that was really interesting to try. Peter says pea berries are somewhat more common. Okay. Power Plant says you can see how tight the pea berries are in the bag, very round barrel-like. Yes, absolutely. Look at that. The way that they form in the bag versus the regular type of coffee bean. Peter says that there's a group of roasters that does RIP beans roasting, and parchment. What? What's the RIP? I'm not familiar with RIP. Roasting. RIP is roast. Oh, gotcha. Roasting and parchment. That's fascinating. M0 says, I just don't trust certain people. If they're roasting and parchment, you shouldn't trust them. That is sus. That is sus. That is so sus. Monsoons equals IPA process. I don't know. I don't know why they included that in their write-up about the monsoon Malabar. Maybe that's just more about the background of coffee in India. I personally would not have included anything about that with the description of this coffee. It doesn't look like a Malabar type of coffee. But M0 says, who would make a genetically altered banana that required intervention every year to reproduce? Of course, Monsanto. I can't help but wonder, given that, hey, they said it was a genetic abnormality producing only one seed if it's altered. I mean, that's what we do in America. That's what modern day agriculture is about having engineered seeds so they can't reproduce. And then they're also engineered so they must have applications of fertilizer. So you're always buying fertilizer. As a farmer, you're always buying fertilizer. You can't replant your seeds. You're totally beholden to capitalist tendencies. And you're eternally screwed. It's really kind of bad. All right. So these are the coffees that I thought would be kind of interesting. I'm going to try to roast them at some point just to see what they're like. Maybe we'll bring some in. Maybe we won't. But either way, it's always interesting to try coffees and understand them better. M0 says an apple is an apple. Plant and you get an apple. You plant and you get apples. Who would purposely make a banana that you have to intervene? I mean, yeah, it's very purposeful. It's very purposeful. Roasting leaves with parchment still. Yeah, gotcha. All right, so I guess that's good for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Always good to see all of you. Hope you have a wonderful day out there, or if for those of you who are in other parts of the world, hope you have a wonderful evening. Back in tomorrow with more of the coffee Q&A. Hopefully we won't have so much transmission errors. But until then, have a great one and see you next time.